Here's the number I want you to sit with for a second. 324 teachers offered contracts to come back to their jobs next year. All but two said yes. If you know anything about the world of early childhood education, you know that number shouldn't exist. Turnover in this field is brutal. It's one of the most underpaid, undervalued jobs in the country, and it usually shows. Except in one city, it doesn't. And I've spent the last week thinking about how they pulled that off and what it says about what's possible when a community decides something is actually worth paying for. That's what we're getting into today. Welcome to the Well Woman Show, the place where women rise, lead, and thrive, both within and beyond the systems that shape our lives. Through an intersectional feminist lens, mindfulness practices, and smart leadership strategies, we support driven women like you to make meaningful change without anxiety, self-doubt, and burnout. On the show, we challenge the status quo and help you unlearn the limiting beliefs that keep you playing small, so you can activate your superpowers and live with joy, confidence, and ease. You'll hear inspiring conversations with women leaders about the systems they're working to change, the journeys that brought them here, and their personal growth in our signature segment, Superpowers for Success. I'm your host, Giovanna Rossi. Today's episode is a little different. It's a solo one, something I haven't done in a while, and honestly, I've missed it. There's something about sitting with you directly without a guest in the room that lets me go a little deeper into a single idea. And today's idea is a good one. Before I get into it, I want to tell you about something new. I've started a partnership with the Better Life Lab at New America. They're a team of researchers and reporters based in Washington, D.C., and their whole focus is tracking what's actually happening across the country on work, gender, and care. Some of my favorite topics. Not the individual workarounds they're all quietly cobbling together to get by, but the real structural solutions. The places where something is genuinely working. So going forward, every so often, I'm going to bring you one of their stories, a bright spot, a place where people looked at a hard problem, one you and I both know intimately, and actually did something about it. And the first one I want to share with you starts with a question I think about a lot. It's hard to imagine how women in America who carry so much of the weight of caregiving could possibly thrive without a more robust and affordable childcare system. Well, in 2012, a city decided to stop imagining and just try something. San Antonio, Texas, passed a ballot measure that allocated 1/8 of a cent in sales tax to go to early education. This passed narrowly. It was a tax increase, albeit a small one, and voters weren't entirely sure this would be a good investment. At the same time, many public pre-K programs were unproven entities. Fast forward to 2026, and this program has served over 23,000 kids. Most attend for free. The high-quality curriculum has translated to higher math and reading scores by third grade, better teaching retention in a field that typically has brutal turnover, and an average of $12,000 more in annual income for the families whose kids participated. For a city with high poverty, or honestly any city, an extra $12,000 a year in take-home income for families is a huge win. But this story isn't about money. There's a slippery slope when we distill childcare down to a purely economic concept, where the messaging shifts entirely to how more parents can go to work, stay in their jobs, have stability. That matters, yes, but so does the actual education of their children. What this story is about is how voters made that change. Back in 2012, San Antonio was facing a rising poverty rate and an education system that was falling behind other cities. The mayor at the time, Julian Castro, brought together local businesses, leaders, and landed on a simple idea. Invest in high-quality early childhood education and build a dedicated funding source so it wouldn't depend on the political mood of any given year. This story was reported by Rebecca Gale, who covers childcare for the Better Life Lab, and also writes a newsletter on caregiving called It Doesn't Have to Be This Hard. She's done a lot of reporting on what actually works in this space, and San Antonio was one of her strongest examples. It wasn't an easy sell. Plenty of voters weren't convinced 4 year olds belonged in a formal school setting at all. And some school districts worried a new city run program would compete with their own. It passed anyway, barely, with 53% of the vote. Within a year, the program, Pre K for SA, opened its first centers, and the difference showed up fast. Independent researchers found that kids who went through the program had higher reading and math scores by third grade than their peers, with the biggest gains among lower income kids and English language learners. Teacher retention also stood out in a field known for losing people constantly, because the program pays its teachers well and treats them like the professionals they are. There's one mom in this report, Jasmine, who almost didn't enroll her son at all. She assumed a program that good wouldn't have room for her family and was surprised to find out it did, at no cost to her. She has since enrolled a second child and plans for a third. Her story is worth reading in full if you want the details. I'll link to it in the show notes. But here's the heart of it, and it's the part I most want to leave you with. In 2020, 8 years after the first ballot measure passed, it was up for a vote again. This time it got 73% of the vote, almost three-quarters of the entire vote. Because once you build a high-quality program, people want to keep it. They can see what it does for the community. They can see it as part of the community. It stops being a question and becomes a foregone conclusion. That's the actual story here. A community that voted twice to take care of its own kids together and built something durable enough that it couldn't just evaporate the next time a budget got tight. I don't think every city has to copy San Antonio's exact playbook, the sales tax, the specific numbers, the timeline, but I do think every city can ask the same question San Antonio voters answered twice. Are we willing to pay together for something we all benefit from? That's a different question than how do we help parents get back to work? It's bigger than that, and I think it's the right one. And honestly, this isn't hypothetical for me. Here in New Mexico, where I live, we're living through our own version of this right now. In November 2025, New Mexico became the first state in the country to offer universal free childcare. No income limits, available to any family that's working or in school. It was signed into law this year, funded through a dedicated state trust fund rather than a sales tax like San Antonio's. But the underlying idea is the same: a place deciding collectively that it's worth paying for. Here's why this story landed for me the way it did. So much of what we talk about on this show comes back to the same pattern: women navigating complex, broken systems, and mostly doing it quietly, individually, as if the exhaustion of it is just the price of admission. Childcare is one of the clearest examples of that. We patch it together, we rearrange our careers around it, we feel guilty when it's hard, and even more guilty when we ask for help. And most of the time, we never stop to ask whether the system itself is the problem because we're too busy surviving inside it. San Antonio is a reminder that the system is not fixed. It's handed down from somewhere else. It's built by people through decisions at a ballot box, and it can be built differently. That's not a small thing to sit with. It's actually kind of radical when you let it be. I think about Jasmine in this story, almost talking herself out of even trying, assuming a good program wouldn't have room for her family. I don't think that instinct is unique to her. So many of us carry some version of that same doubt that the good thing, the supportive thing, the thing that could actually make this easier probably isn't for us or probably isn't real. And then it turns out it is. That's worth noticing in your own life, too. Where are you assuming a door is closed before you've actually checked? There's also something here about trusting collective effort, not just individual grit. And I think back to a conversation I had on this show with Lucia Sirmi Obon, the feminist economist who ran national childcare policy in Argentina. She told me that the real barrier to better care systems usually isn't the people that people don't value care. It's that almost no one has figured out where the money comes from. As she put it, we had to collectively pay for this. We talk a lot on this show about self trust, trusting your own judgment, your own pace, your own no. But self trust isn't the same as going it alone. San Antonio's story is a really important story about a community trusting itself enough to invest in something before it had all the proof, and then trusting itself again 8 years later when the evidence was in hand. That's a version of self trust, too, just at a collective scale, and exactly what Lucia was describing. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you're a parent navigating childcare right now, in whatever form that takes for you, this isn't a personal failing. The math doesn't work for most families because the system wasn't built for it to work. That's not you, that's the system. And if childcare isn't your immediate reality, if this doesn't touch your life directly right now, I'd still ask you to hold on to San Antonio's example because more than half of the people in the Everyone Benefits survey weren't caregivers either. They voted for it anyway. Supporting families with young kids or aging parents or anyone doing the work of care is something all of us have a stake in, whether or not we're the ones doing it today. Here's a resource if you want to go further. The Better Life Lab has more reporting on this type of issue on their site, newamerica.org. I'll link to the full San Antonio piece in the show notes along with more of their work. And here's a reflection to sit with this week. Is there a San Antonio moment in your own community? Some piece of care infrastructure, big or small, that people have accepted as unfixable? What would it look like to ask out loud whether that's actually true? This is the first of an ongoing series I'll be bringing you from the Better Life Lab, real solutions already working in states and communities across the country. If there's a bright spot happening where you live, something in your own community that's actually working when it comes to care, work, or gender equity, I'd love to hear about it. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, follow us on Instagram at Well Woman Life. And don't forget, you can catch the show on NPR anytime. Just head to npr.org/podcasts and search for The Well Woman Show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a quick review. It really helps others find the show. I always love hearing from you, so drop a comment or message me on socials at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.